Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for the opportunity to present our key findings and the implications that we see for broadband service providers from our recent analysis of broadband usage data. My name is Larry Siegel, and I'll be serving as your host on today's webinar. You can imagine I'm wearing a suit and tie if you like. And I'm going to introduce our agenda, talk a bit about our role in developing this groundbreaking report, and then turn it over to our CEO and founder, Mark Trudeau, who will take us on a deep dive into the key findings and their implications for broadband operators. As we go through, if you have any questions, please submit your questions within the strip below, and we'll try to address as many questions as we can. For questions unanswered, we will address them individually after the webinar. So today, here's what we're going to go over. Overview of what the OpenVault Broadband Industry Report is and how we create it. A summary of findings from our most recent report. Where we are as an industry in terms of the growth of broadband usage data. What are power users and what's their impact for operators? The usage impact to operators for usage-based billing customers versus flat rate billing customers. And then we're going to take a deep dive into our first finding about cord cutting behavior, which we believe can be predictive for when they're about to cut it and what we can do about it. We'll close with a quick look at OpenVault, our suite of solutions to allow us that creates not just industry insights, but actionable solutions for your broadband offering. And then we'll have Q&A and address the questions that you have from this report. So just a quick overview, OpenVault is a 10-year-old company specializing in proprietary solutions for broadband operators, providing actionable solutions and tools based on analytics. We provide these solutions for over 150 operators in North and South America, Europe, and Asia. We've helped operators improve annual revenue by hundreds of millions of dollars, and we do so for more operators than any other broadband-focused software vendor in the world. Our platform generates not just insights from massive data collection and analytics, but we offer a suite of software solutions that help operators better their network management, save time and cost, increase ARPU, and deliver higher customer satisfaction. Our tools gather broadband usage data generated by customers, and once within our platform, we have individual solutions performing analytics so they can unlock actionable solutions to provide improved network management and monetize high-speed data usage, provide peak performance and optimal quality. More on this later. But it's the analytic ecosystem from which we can build our report and the subject we're going to be talking about today. In fact, we take all the data usage within our platform and create a holistic pool of data across millions of subscribers, subscriber usage data records rather, and then execute a series of powerful analytic queries, resulting in insights that we produce in our report. So now for a dive into our key findings, here's our OpenVault CEO and founder, Mark Trudeau.
Great, thank you, Larry. And let's just jump right into some of the key findings. First and foremost, data growth is continuing, right? We're seeing a tremendous increase in monthly weighted average, and we're going to talk about that here in a bit. That's one of the main findings. A second one is the fact that we are, in fact, seeing a huge increase in the amount of power users out there. And we'll talk about what we define as power users and how that's increased year over year since last year at this time. Next topic, and you're going to see this woven throughout the presentation and as kind of a common theme, and that is the usage behavior that we're observing for operators that have the all-you-can-eat unlimited type billing plans, which we call flat rate billing, versus the observations that we see with operators that actually have deployed usage-based billing, where in fact they have usage quotas per speed tier and they charge subscribers when they exceed those quotas. So we're going to talk about that. And then, as Larry mentioned, a big topic these days is cord cutting. and we've done a lot of homework around the differences in usage behavior of subscribers that have cut the cord versus those that still have traditional bundled video and broadband services together. What that means in particular, you see on this slide, what that means for power users, and the fact that we're seeing a much higher percentage of the cord cutters that exceed a terabyte of usage, for example, versus what we see with traditional bundled subscribers. So we'll talk about cord cutting as well as we go through the presentation. We should have probably mentioned up front, we're going to try to keep this to around 30 to 35 minutes or so. So we'll try to get you through this relatively quickly, but yet try to leave some time to answer as many questions as we can. We're going to start here with just very simple average usage data. This is really on a per subscriber basis. We're seeing an average of 275 gigabytes used per household here in the third quarter. And what we want to show you here is the fact that, number one, this is 21% higher than what we observed last year at this time. This is actually the blend between both flat rate and usage-based billing subscribers. And if we move to the next slide, we can actually start to look at what happens when we examine the growth rate of flat rate billing operators versus those that offer usage-based billing. And we're actually seeing the same or similar growth rates in that 20-21% range. But if you look into the numbers in a little more detail, we're seeing that flat rate billing subscribers actually use an average of about 10% higher usage per household than those subscribers that have usage-based billing in place. So what this tells us is that usage-based billing is in fact helping to curtail usage. And this is something that we get asked a lot by our operator customers that are considering things like usage-based billing. A common question is, will it help me curtail usage? And we certainly have enough evidence now with millions of subscribers that really fall on both ends of the ledger here that offer flat rate billing and usage-based billing across our customer base. And we absolutely see a discernible difference in usage behavior based on the type of billing plans in place. When we look at median data, we can see that median data is actually growing at an even faster rate than average usage across our customer base. This indicates that it's not just the top users dragging up the average and resulting in the increase in usage. It's actually the entire customer base and subscriber base using more and more data. And again, we are seeing that difference, about 11% higher median usage for flat rate billing operators versus that of usage-based billing operators. One thing we really want to put out as a word of warning, and this recently came across from the CTIA, focused on what's happened in the mobile industry, and the fact that over the last 9 or 10 years, the increase in data has actually reached almost 9,000% over that period of time, yet the ARPUs in that industry have actually declined. And this is exactly what we want to try to help prevent in the wired broadband space, and we'll talk about how we can go about doing that here in a second. Essentially, we focus a lot on power users and the fact that we know from having done this for a long time just the kind of impact that power users and what many operators would call abusers can do to an operator's network. And keeping up with that demand is a challenge. One of the things that we want to highlight here is we have defined now power users to be those subscribers that use a terabyte or more per month. If you look at that third bullet down, 37% of all subscribers in the third quarter consume at least 250 gigabytes per month. That was our definition of a power user a few years ago, 250 gigabytes. Obviously, since we now see over a third of subscribers using over that threshold, that's no longer considered a power user. And we've started looking at this terabyte and north subscriber as the power user. What's scary about that is we've seen a 62% increase in the number of power users this past quarter than we did a year ago at this time. Now we're seeing about 4.2% of all subscribers in the third quarter have used over a terabyte, that compares to 2.58% a year ago. So a huge increase in power users. Okay. Another thing we like to do here is always, and I mentioned this is going to be a common theme, we always like to compare our observations of the flat rate billing offerings versus those of usage-based billing. So we've taken these three categories that you see along the bottom, along the x-axis, and we've compared basically what is happening with flat rate billing operators versus usage-based billing at each of those levels. So at the greater than 250 level, we see that flat rate billing operators see on average nearly 7% higher percentage of subscribers using over 250 gigabytes versus those of usage-based billing. But if we go all the way over to the greater than 2 terabyte category, this delta becomes even more pronounced. So basically what we're seeing is 2/3 more power users, ultra power users, those that use over 2 terabytes, if you have flat rate, all you can eat, unlimited plans in place versus that of usage-based billing operators which have quotas in place. So again, another indication that by putting usage quotas in place, by having usage-based billing in place, it absolutely curtails usage, particularly at the very, very high end, which if you really think about it, makes a lot of sense. A lot of our operators, and we always recommend this, as they're deploying usage-based billing, they actually start with quotas around that 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte level. So it allows them to go out to market, put a very positive message out there saying they're not going to impact a huge percentage of their subscribers, but it does protect them from those ultra power users who tend to migrate to those networks that are unlimited and ultimately have a big impact, negative impact on the networks and ultimately the customer experience of the larger subscriber base. Another area that we look at is the percentage of subscribers at each speed tier. And we ultimately look at the distribution of subscribers across various speed tiers. And what's interesting, and we'll spend a little time on this, talking about it for a second, is that at the low end, and we're talking about subscribers now that are provisioned at 30 megabits per second or less. And these would be considered lower bandwidth tiers based on obviously what's available in the marketplace today. And what's interesting is, and it might sound counterintuitive to a certain degree, but there's over 3 times as many subscribers that are on flat rate billing plans subscribe to these low bandwidth tiers. A very small percentage of subscribers that have usage-based billing in place that are dealing with usage quotas are actually on low bandwidth plans. Now, why is that? And what we have seen over time is that subscribers who are faced with usage-based billing and usage quotas tend to not like the unknown. They don't want to approach their usage quota and potentially be faced with an overage fee. So what happens is, as subscribers are notified that they're approaching their limit, they oftentimes proactively self-select to upgrade their package to higher speed tiers. And this is kind of a misnomer. A lot of folks think that the increase in ARPU is really driven by overage fees that operators that have OVBI in place, when in fact, the larger percentage of ARPU increase comes from the fact that subscribers are self-selecting to upgrade their service because they just don't like the unknown. The results of upgrading their service are that they get the faster speed, their quota goes up because typically higher speeds come with higher quotas, ultimately resulting in happier customers. And we'll talk about that a little more in a second. And we'll do that as we get into cord cutting a little bit. But one of the things that, again, cord cutting has become a huge topic, and it appears that it's not slowing down at all. In fact, if anything, it's accelerating. And for those on the call that haven't heard that term, it's ultimately a term now that's being defined as those subscribers who traditionally have had the bundled double play, triple play type services that ultimately are moving to a broadband only service and calling their operator and canceling video service in particular and moving all of the consumption of content to broadband and subscribing to various broadband streaming services, which we'll talk about here in a second. So all of these types of services are obviously driving Cord cutting, the more and more streaming video, OTT, over-the-top options that are available, means that you're seeing less and less of an interest in subscribers holding on to that traditional video service. And if you followed what happened last week, in fact, with the launch of Disney Plus, huge success in terms of bringing on new subscribers. Within the first day, or a couple days, I think, they added over 10 million subscribers to the Disney Plus service right after launch, which vastly exceeded their expectations. So again, that with the launch of HBO Max next year, Peacock, all of these services are going to continue to drive cord cutting. And this is important that operators really understand the implications of that. By many analysts count, one in particular forecasting that over 6 million video subscribers will cut the cord in 2020. I don't have the percentage off the top of my head of the increase versus 2019, but we've seen already in 2019 records being set for cord cutting, and as we can see, the expectation is that is only going to accelerate. What does this mean? So as we look at cord cutters, we look at the usage behavior of those subscribers that did have the bundled service, moved to broadband only. We're seeing their usage at nearly double that 275 gigabytes that we mentioned up front as the average household to over a half a terabyte now. So you can imagine that as cord cutting accelerates and as we see this usage behavior continue to exceed even the highest levels, this is going to have a major impact on operator networks. When we hone in again on power users and you look at the percentage of those subscribers that are using over a terabyte, cord cutters actually 12% of them are using over a terabyte versus again that 4.2% of the weighted average subscribers that have traditional bundled services. So nearly 3 times the levels. So when we combine an acceleration of cord cutting with this kind of usage increase, operators need to be very wary about what's coming. The impacts on their network, the impacts on customer satisfaction and handling that kind of network demand, and ultimately impacts across their business from customer care to field techs and truck rolls, etc. We also looked at what happened when subscribers cut the cord, right? And a natural question is, well, do they upgrade their plan? And what we've seen is that roughly a little less than 30% of subscribers are actually upgrading their broadband plan at the time of cord cutting. And it's important to note that we view these other 2/3 of customers of subscribers that are cutting the cord as absolutely revenue opportunities. This is low-hanging fruit for operators. And operators should really be prepared at the time of the cord cutting event to upgrade these subscribers to the next plan. And to do this, they need the tools, they need the visibility to go forth and do these upsells. Why do they need to do this? Well, of course, they are losing margin and losing ARPU when somebody cuts a video cord. Granted, these days video margins are not tremendous, but they are losing some margins. They're also losing margin on some things like set-top box rentals and what have you. So this margin has to be replaced. And there's no better way to do that than to ultimately try and upgrade the subscriber to a faster speed tier, which comes at nearly 100% of incremental margin for every new dollar of ARPU driven by doing that. The other thing it will do is it will improve customer satisfaction. Many subscribers that we see are misprovisioned for their bandwidth needs. Their bandwidth needs are only going to increase as they cut the cord. If you think about it, many set-top boxes that subscribers use today for many of their content consumption, those are going away. So every bit of content that's consumed will be via the broadband pipe and will typically be streaming video. And if you think about the bandwidth needs of multiple simultaneous streaming videos going on, many times in 4K and soon to be 8K content, it chews up a lot of bandwidth. There's huge bandwidth needs to support that level of behavior. So it's at that time of cord cutting that operators really need to be prepared to upgrade that subscriber to faster speeds. At the end of the day, they're going to be happier subscribers. They're going to be calling into customer care less. There's going to be less trucks being rolled out there to support them. And ultimately, the network is going to be run more efficiently by doing so. So really, in conclusion, every year we think, having done this a long time, that usage growth is going to decelerate. That never seems to be the case. And now, given the trend of cord cutting and the replacement of traditional video with over-the-top options, we expect this growth to continue, and we'll continue to report on it. Another key conclusion, again, is just the impact of power users on the networks. Operators should really consider usage-based billing models to help curtail that. We have enough data now to show there is a significant delta between operators that have flat rate billing in place and those with usage-based billing. So I understand, a lot of operators are concerned about that often because of competitive reasons, or they're worried about customer backlash. I can tell you again, having done this now for a long time, helping our customers with this, customer satisfaction over time actually increases. And that's because of some of the things I mentioned before. Many subscribers will ultimately self-select and right-size themselves to higher bandwidth tiers, which means they're getting the bandwidth they need. They're not going to be calling customer care anymore because the internet's slow. They're self-selecting to pay you more, drive up your ARPU, but ultimately be happier customers, resulting in less phone calls and less truck rolls. So it's a common question that we get, usage-based billing, is that going to be negative to customer satisfaction? In fact, over time, we have enough evidence that shows it's actually very positive, has a positive impact on customer satisfaction. Lastly, here again, back to cord cutting, given the fact that we have enough data now to show that there is a discernible difference between usage leading up to a cord cutting event for cord cutters versus the traditional subscriber base, it allows us to predict when there's going to be a cord cutting event, allowing operators to create campaigns, be prepared for it, to drive upgrades at the time of cord cutting, and ultimately use that cord cutting event as a way to not only increase ARPU, but significantly increase margins. So again, Larry touched on some of the little introduction to OpenVault earlier. We actually do provide software solutions to our subscriber base. So while you're seeing a lot of data, that data and the analysis that's done really is coming from the fact that we're offering solutions to operators, collecting a vast amount of data, turning that data into information that ultimately triggers actionable software solutions. And those software solutions are all designed to help operators better manage their network, saving time and cost. Increasing ARPU is a big focus, monetizing the growth on the networks, and ultimately resulting in higher customer satisfaction. So a sampling of those solutions you can see here on the screen, and everything from again, analytics solutions and dashboards and the like, but actionable solutions that ultimately can help you better manage your network and monetize the growth on your network.
Thank you, Mark. I understand you'll be sticking around for some Q&A. Thank you for that. Before that, just a reminder for those folks on the call to visit our site. If you haven't downloaded the Q3 report, the OVBI report, you can find it right on our website. It's in the top scroller, and you can download it directly if you haven't yet. And also, feel free to contact us to set up a call to discuss how we can provide those actionable solutions into your network with our suite of tools. You can call us or just send an email to sales@openvault.com. So a couple questions came in during the presentation. One of them you kind of already addressed, but maybe you could say a bit more about it. Question is, what can you say about subscriber satisfaction or churn after switching to a UBB, as we've been recommending throughout the presentation?
Yeah, well, yes, I did try to address this a little bit. I mean, so customer satisfaction, subscriber satisfaction over time is certainly higher amongst those operators that have UBB in place because they have upgraded their plan, they have right-sized. We have seen zero discernible difference in churn with operators that have deployed UBB. Sure, you're going to get subscribers that complain. You're going to get subscribers that maybe even put a complaint into the FCC. That all dies down very, very quickly. And frankly, it's the abusers on your network, those causing network issues, that are the ones that are going to complain. The reason they're on your network is because right now you have unlimited plans. And that makes it very difficult for you to deal with capacity needs. And it's why so many of our operators that have moved to the UBB route never have regretted it. Their only desire or wish is that they had done it sooner.
Thank you. Another question came in. We're intrigued by the idea of cord cutting. Moving cord cutter subscribers toward faster speed packages. What would be the selling proposition that you would recommend to get our subscribers there?
Well, I think it's the usage behavior and usage content consumption behavior itself that is the biggest argument. So as I mentioned, if you've got 3 or 4 TVs right now that simultaneously consume content in the traditional video way, now you're going to be dealing with 3 or 4 simultaneous streaming services. And depending on the quality that's being served up of that content, it's going to drive a significantly higher amount of bandwidth and speed that you need to provide a high quality content to each of those devices. And so it's at that time of cord cutting when a customer care rep has that subscriber on the phone that should be armed with that information and walk that customer down that path. Because remember, they're going to be giving up $80 or $90 or more of a video spend that they're used to paying, right? And what's another $20 or $30 if you can convince them to move up in speed and give you another $20 to $30? That $20 to $30 in incremental revenue is a higher margin than that $80 to $90 video service was. So you absolutely want to push customers in that direction.
That's great. Those are the questions we received. If you have the email address here, if you have any questions, you could also send it to the same email address. We'll be happy to answer it or talk to you one-on-one to provide unique answers for your particular challenges.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. And one more thing I would like to say is moving forward, each of our quarterly reports, and many of you that are on the webinar, have received some of these reports since the beginning, since we started offering them. But each quarter, we're going to have our new OVBI released, and wrapped around it will be a deeper dive webinar like this. So be prepared for that. If this is interesting, we will continue to do this on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, Mark. This concludes. Thank you again for your time and your attention. We look forward to seeing you next time, and certainly before that with any questions you have. Have a great day.